This is the Supreme Court of Canada, the highest court in the country. It is the final court of appeals and is composed of 9 judges. The selection and the choice of robes is outside the scope of this video, but is still equally amusing and humorous. Recently, this judge, the Honorable Clémence Gascon, retired from the court on September 15, 2019. A day later, on September 16th, Nicolas Cazire took Gascon's seat. But how did this happen? How does someone new get on the Supreme Court of Canada? Well, technically, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recommended him, and Governor General Julie Payette appointed him on the basis of that recommendation. However, it is important to note that the process is just not that simple. We first need to wait for a vacancy in the court, as this can happen when a justice turns 75, when a justice dies, when a justice is forcefully removed, or when they decide to retire. Further, there are some ground rules that need to be followed. To start with, the Supreme Court Act of 1985 outlines some statutory requirements. A Supreme Court judge needs to be either a current or former judge of a provincial superior court or court of appeal, or be a current or former barrister or advocate of at least 10 years standing at the bar of the province. Crucially, the law also states that 3 Supreme Court judges must have served on Quebec's Court of Appeal or Superior Court. By convention, 3 Supreme Court judges must be from Ontario, 2 from Western Canada, and 1 from Atlantic Canada. As of 2016, the Trudeau government implemented a new process for the selection of Supreme Court judges. It involves the use of the Independent Advisory Board for the Supreme Court of Canada judicial appointments, a non-partisan body that gives the Prime Minister merit-based recommendations. The board is headed by former Prime Minister Kim Campbell and is composed of legal professionals including 2 lawyers, 1 legal scholar, a retired judge, and 3 other members, 2 of which are non-lawyers. The board proactively seeks out qualified individuals, but also accepts applications. The board looks for certain qualities in an applicant. From those who apply, the board creates a short list of 3 to 5 individuals based on the relevant criteria. One of them is that jurists are functionally bilingual. This means that jurists need to be able to read and understand legal materials and arguments in both English and French. They also try to find jurists that reflect the diversity of Canada. Once the shortlist is finalized, the Minister of Justice will consult with various stakeholders, such as the Chief Justice of Canada, relevant provincial and territorial attorney generals, relevant cabinet ministers, opposition justice critics, and the Standing Senate Committee. Based on these consultations and the Minister of Justice's recommendation, the Prime Minister will choose the nominee and publicly announce his or her name. The Minister of Justice and the chairperson of the Advisory Board will then appear before the House of Commons Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights to explain why the nominee was selected and to take questions. Members of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights, the Standing Senate Committee on Legal and Constitutional Affairs, and a representative from each party with seats in the House will then be invited to take part in a question and answer period with the eventual nominee. Finally, the Governor General will appoint the new nominee to the Supreme Court of Canada. Despite this new process, all recommendations, objections, and opinions of committees are not binding. Theoretically, if the Prime Minister wanted to, they could disregard everything that was suggested by the various boards and committees and simply recommend someone else who met the requirements. The Governor General could as well reject the Prime Minister's nomination. As earlier mentioned, the entire process was newly created in 2016. Thus, any new Prime Minister could create an entirely new one. However, it doesn't look like this is going to happen anytime soon. To be clear, however, The process of Prime Minister nominating and the Governor General making the final appointment is not going anywhere. Now we know how judges are appointed to the court, but we still don't know why they dress the way they do.